Doctor Strange is the newest addition to the Marvel Cinematic Universe. This one's directed by Scott Derrickson, and it follows Stephen Strange, a neurosurgeon played by Benedict Cumberbatch, who's very Tony Stark-esque, not just because he's rich, but he thinks he's better than everyone else. He's very egotistical. Unfortunately, though, one day he gets in a horrible car crash and his hands are just completely destroyed, constantly shaking. He's pretty much ruined. And when Western medicine fails him when recovering his hands, he resorts to Eastern medicine to try to do that, and he stumbles upon a place run by Tilda Swinton, and he thinks that she's going to be able to cure his hands with science, but it turns out her thing is not science, it's magic. And then after that, Stephen Strange gets involved in the world of sorcery. He's learning new things about magic, and he's involved in a battle between them and Caecilius, played by Mads Mikkelsen, the big bad guy of this movie. I think it's pretty much been proven that Marvel can't really fail at anything. The only bad movie they've actually put out is Iron Man 2. For me, everything else they put out I've either liked or loved. So I wasn't skeptical going into Doctor Strange. I was just interested to see what they were going to do with this certain character, because they've done really well with characters I didn't really think could work in a movie, like Guardians of the Galaxy and Ant-Man, for example. And once again, I think Marvel put out a really great film. This is a really solid introduction to the Doctor Strange character, and now I want to see a whole lot more of him. There are two things about this movie that I thought were really great. The first one being its visual effects. Now, visually, this is the best Marvel film. The visuals in this movie are outstanding, especially what you've seen in the trailer where the buildings are kind of folding in on each other, but I guarantee you there's a whole lot more to that than you might think. And also the way they incorporate their action scenes with the visual effects, it really is some impressive stuff to watch. And I think Scott Derrickson overall did a really good job as the director, not just visually, but also with its action scenes as well. This movie is really fun to watch because of mesmerizing visuals and some great action. I did not see this movie in 3D, unfortunately, but I think if I did, I would have loved the visuals even more. So if you haven't seen it yet, I would suggest seeing it in 3D. The second really great thing about this movie is Benedict Cumberbatch's portrayal as Stephen Strange. I thought he did extremely well, because this character is not very easy to do, because he's a jerk. He's egotistical, he thinks he's better than everyone else. It's very hard to portray that in a likable way, but because of the acting from Benedict Cumberbatch, he actually brought a little bit of charm to the character that actually made you kind of like him, even though he's being a jerk to some people. But then they also work in the fact that he's trying to better himself as the film goes along, so you actually start to appreciate the character even more if you didn't like him at first. Some other things I liked about this movie: Chiwetel Ejiofor, I thought he did a really good job as Mordo, and if you're familiar with the comics, you will know that he's actually one of the villains in that series, so it's kind of weird seeing him as like buddy-buddy with Doctor Strange in this movie. But after seeing the movie, I think that was a really good choice to kind of introduce the character of Mordo, kind of see what he believes. And without spoiling a lot, I would love to see what else they do with this character as the Marvel films progress. Tilda Swinton, I also think, did a very good job. I'm going to kind of skim over this because I don't really want to focus on the controversy surrounding the casting of this character, but I think Tilda Swinton did a good job playing the Ancient One, and she actually is involved in one of the most emotional scenes in any Marvel film between her and another character. I won't spoil it, obviously, but I thought it was really touching, and I think Tilda Swinton actually brought a lot to this role. The character of Wong, played by Benedict Wong, I thought was a nice addition. He's basically this big librarian guy who doesn't get humor. He will give you the stone cold expression face. And I thought he was very funny in this movie. And another thing I'd like to mention is the comedy. I actually think it works very well here. A lot of people have been saying that it feels awkward, and I honestly didn't really get that. This isn't Marvel's funniest film by any means. That title belongs to Guardians of the Galaxy, but I didn't hate the humor of this movie. I actually did laugh at the jokes they were telling. And the last thing I'll mention here, Rachel McAdams as the sorta kinda love interest to Stephen Strange. I thought she was a pleasant addition to the cast, though her character isn't in it a whole lot. I like what they did with her character and Stephen Strange, mainly because of how those characters interacted and how her character is affecting Stephen Strange's life and making him want to become a better person. So there are a lot of great things going for Doctor Strange. The performances are all really well done, the humor is there, the action's there, the visuals are great, and this movie actually has a really interesting climax. It starts off a typical Marvel climax, and I'm like, okay, the big battle, here we go, but then they kind of change it, and I was like, oh, I actually wasn't really expecting that. And I give them a huge credit for that, because this is a very different kind of world in the MCU, and I was overall happy with how they presented it in this movie. However, I do think there are two big things that are pulling this movie back from being a great Marvel film. First off, I thought the pacing of this movie was really rushed, and it's not a problem with the story, it's just I didn't really have a clue of the passage of time. Not just because I thought the first 20 minutes was kind of rushed getting to the Doctor Strange point in Stephen Strange's life, but also with him learning new things, it feels like he becomes this great sorcerer in the span of 5 days. And I think maybe if they inserted a title card here and there like 3 weeks later, or a month later, maybe a year, then I think the movie would have had a better flow, because I know Doctor Strange is the Sorcerer Supreme in the comics, but I don't really think he can do that in the span of like 5 days. That's how it felt in the movie. And the second big problem I had with this movie, it's a tradition with these things, it's the villain. I love Mads Mikkelsen. Le Chiffre in Casino Royale, love him. And I thought as soon as they put him in this movie, maybe he was going to be like the new standard for Marvel villains. And it turns out he's just another forgettable one. He's not one of the worst Marvel villains ever, not like Malekith or Ronan, but he just came across as really forgettable. He has a motivation, but they barely really dwell in on that. I think maybe if they fleshed out his backstory a little bit more and maybe gave him a little bit more of a personality than just him saying some dialogue and him wanting to end the world. Because Mads Mikkelsen's performance, I love Mads Mikkelsen and I can't wait to see him in Star Wars, but his performance just felt like they plopped him on set and he didn't really have time to get invested with the character, so he just spoke the lines that were given to him. But overall, this is a really fun movie. Doctor Strange is a great new addition to the MCU. I love the performances, I love the visual effects, and the action is really well done. And I really gotta give this movie credit for doing some things differently, especially that climax, which I really loved. And of course, the post-credit scenes, stick around for them, there's 2 of them. They're both really great. I'm gonna give Doctor Strange a B+. I think if they worked on the villain a little bit more and maybe worked on giving this movie a better passage of time, this movie would have been great. But you know what? This is another good film from Marvel. They have consistently been putting out some really great movies for us, and hey, I can't complain a whole lot about that. But if you've seen Doctor Strange, leave in the comments below what you thought of it, and as always, thank you guys for watching. Make sure to subscribe. I'm Jackson Fulcher. See you guys next time.